Chris Cuomo admits to taking ivermectin, and he won't apologize for it. This is after spending his whole time during the pandemic on CNN making millions of dollars, telling everybody not only do they need to take the vaccine, but he wanted to mandate the vaccine. And he also was making fun of people who took ivermectin or were curious about ivermectin or talked about ivermectin, demonized them, made fun of them. Let's go ahead and play some of these clips. Now, Chris Cuomo is claiming now that he never claimed to be vaccine injured. He's claiming that he has long COVID. That is what he's claiming. So I want to play this for you. We're going to first watch his News Nation. When this first came out a couple of days ago, people were saying, oh my gosh, Chris Cuomo admits to being vaccine injured. He's backpedaling on this, but you watch for yourself and you decide. So here he is.
New York Times released an article that's getting a lot of play that says that there are thousands of people who say they're still suffering side effects they believe from the vaccine and that those have been ignored. Now, one of them is nurse practitioner Sean Barkovich. He says he got his first dose in 2020, had side effects. Just standing up sent his heart racing, stinging pain in his eyes, mouth, groin. Those have gotten a little bit better, but he still has what they call tinnitus. That's a ringing in the ears. We know that vaccines can have unintended consequences, AKA side effects, but nobody's really talking about it because they're too afraid of blame and they just want it to go away. But the problem is people like Sean and me and millions of others who still have weird stuff with their blood work and their lives and their feelings, physically, are not going away.
So does that sound like he's saying he's vaccine injured? I mean, there he starts the segment talking about vaccines, and then he's saying people like Sean and me have weird symptoms and weird things going on with our blood. That sounds like he's admitting to being vaccine injured. But let's go ahead and skip ahead because he actually he admits it a little bit. Well, here he says it. He kind of reiterates it here.
Help. Well, let me tell you something, Sean. I can't help you because I'm no clinician. I'm sick myself. I'm working with people who are working on this. So I'll make sure that we're in touch right after the show. And I'll help any way I can. You may be ahead of me. I'll hook you up with my clinicians, and maybe you can share different protocols and things that may help. But I will never stop reporting on this. And all I'm doing is just beating the drum of you need to have a 9/11 style commission to figure out what worked and what didn't and what questions need to be answered because it's not over. So not only are we not set up for the next pandemic, and there will be one, but we're not treating people, millions of people who still have problems from the last one. Sean, thank you very much for sharing your story. I'll be in touch.
I am just so grossed out by Chris Cuomo's career rehabilitation that he's doing. I mean, listen to him saying, I will not stop reporting on this because he's like now some sort of a truth teller. He's there now. He's a narrative slayer or something. I mean, this is just a guy who's looking to make money. And he's figured out that CNN, people no longer trust. People don't trust him for the things that he promoted and said on CNN. And so now he's trying to be the next Joe Rogan. That's what he wants to be. He's trying to rehabilitate himself. One place where he's rehabilitating himself on is the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David. So I don't know the deal. I don't know how Chris Cuomo is I don't know if he's on that show every day or every time they do the podcast or if it's once a week or what he's got going on. But Patrick had announced that Chris Cuomo had joined Valuetainment in some capacity. So he's been on their podcast. Also rehabilitating you can't rehabilitate this guy. There's nothing to rehabilitate. He's not somebody who's interested in the truth. He's somebody who's interested in making money and being popular and being famous and remaining in the spotlight. And he'll say and do anything he needs to do in order to do that. But here he is on their show talking about, really, for one, he refused to apologize for all of the propaganda that he spewed and how he treated people during the pandemic. But he also now is backpedaling, claiming he's not vaccine injured, but he's instead long COVID injured. Watch this. We'll go ahead and play this one.
I want to show you with Byron Donalds. That went viral this week. Ralph, you can pull that up. So this video here is a video, if we can get the date, this is how many, let's see what Chief, can you go back up to see when this video is? This video is from 2021. Let me read it from Chief Nerd. He's great at posting these types of things. Now that you have left CNN, Chris, and started providing more balanced view on COVID vaccines, including the serious harm that can cause, Would you be willing to apologize for interviews like this one from 2021? The mainstream media denial of natural immunity claims that the vaccine would stop infection transmission and complete omission of potential risk caused great harm in our society. People lost careers, relationships, loved ones, and trust in our institutions due to its harmful propaganda. Your apology would show a lot of courage that, frankly, your peers have lacked. All right, play the clip. It's 2 minutes. Go for it.
Everybody should know that about you, Byron Donald. You are not telling people to get vaccinated. You are not pushing it. You are not saying it's the right choice. You're saying you're not doing it and your family's not doing it, and you're leaving out of the equation that you can make other people sick, as if that doesn't matter. Okay?
Chris, did you not just hear my answer 30 seconds ago where I said if you want to be protected from these variants and the original strain, please go get vaccinated? I promote you to do that. I just told you live on your own show that if you want to get vaccinated in America, go do it. But if there are Americans like myself who choose not to, please don't berate me for doing that. That is a personal choice I have made. It's my own health care. I am allowed to do that. I'm entitled to do that.
Byron, you're absolutely right to do it. You have a right to do it. Two different statements. Okay? Do you have the right? Of course, nobody's debating that except you guys as a false choice. What I'm saying is it right to do it? Have you spoken to a doctor? You're supposed to be a leader. Have you talked to the CDC and the people who are in Florida at the Department of Health about whether or not they think you made a good choice? Because if your answer is just then, well, I don't care what they say. This is me. I'm an American. That is being dumb as a proxy for being bold. And I don't think it's a good message because remember, it's not just you protecting yourself.
Let me say this.
It's you protecting me and other people from you. That's why you get vaccinated, not just for yourself. Important distinction. Go ahead.
Actually, the way vaccines work are to protect yourself. A vaccine that basically gives you a special cocoon where you actually limit the worst harmful effects of the virus itself or may not get it altogether depending on your own personal physiology. So that's the way vaccines work. Now, to me,
that's science, by the way. He's actually spewing science, and Chris Cuomo is spewing propaganda.
Me personally, I did talk to a couple of doctors that I know about it. I told them I already had it, and I'm 42. What do you think? And they said, yeah, you're fine. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. They didn't come and say, no, you have to do it because of everybody else. Because if other people want to be protected, they have access to vaccines. Go get the vaccine. I would never tell anybody not to get vaccinated. I do totally support it if that's what somebody chooses to do.
Byron, I'm with you.
I don't know why this is hard. It's that simple.
Right.
Listen, I totally agree with you. It is very simple. I think you're making it hard because you're seeing some kind of righteousness and a choice to do something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, that's your right. What I'm saying is something else. You're wrong about how vaccines work. You're only giving part of the prophylaxis, okay? The other aspect to why you take the vaccine is it also reduces, not completely, nothing is perfect, and certainly this vaccine is not, but it also reduces your ability to communicate the virus and make other people infected. That part matters too.
Okay. Now that's resurfacing. We've had conversations. We've talked about COVID. Tom and I are talking about the long vaccine and what that's doing. A lot of my friends are going through it. And
long
we keep
COVID.
Hearing, not long vaccine, forgive me. Long COVID. A lot of friends are talking about it. We're 40, 50. You know, you're sitting there saying, hey, what the hell is going on in my body? What's changed from that conversation with you and Byron to where you are today?
Well, a lot has changed, and a lot needs to change that hasn't. Here's what matters to me about the clip. Apology? Of course not.
Of course not. I'm not going to apologize. Do you know why he's not going to apologize? Because he wants a CNN job back. That's why. He doesn't make nearly as much money at News Nation as he was making at CNN. He's not, he's trying to do this rehabilitation thing where he's on the PBD podcast. He's got a Substack now. He's trying to be like this. I'm cool. I'm a truth teller. But he knows that that's not really where the money is for him. He wants his job back on CNN. So he doesn't want to apologize. He wants to continue playing both sides. Let's continue watching and see what he has to say for himself.
Byron Donalds comes on my show now, okay? Why? Exchange of respect. Was never personal. I believe as a leader at that time, you had a duty to be thorough in what you were putting out there as opposed to just playing politics, okay? This was never as simple as vaccine good, vaccine bad. Politics made it that.
No, you helped make it that, Chris Cuomo. It wasn't politics. It was actually the media more than it was the politicians, because the media had to continue spewing what the politicians were saying, or not even the politicians, But what Fauci, what the CDC, what those scientists were saying, they don't have megaphones. You had the megaphone. So you were the one who was actually pushing that onto everybody. It wasn't just the politicians. You were actually one of the the biggest culprits was Chris Cuomo.
And it put us into a toxic environment, no pun intended, where even today, there's no curiosity about the vaccine. You get a VAERS system, which is very imperfect. And you don't have robust government dialogue or investigation of the vaccine.
Yes, there is. He hasn't been. How is this guy even? I mean, follow the news. I mean, here he is doing a news show on News Nation. He can't even follow basic news. What about the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic? They've been investigating this. Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, has he not been paying attention? No, he hasn't, because he's just here to collect a paycheck and lift weights.
You don't have political investigation of what happened during the pandemic, what was right, what was wrong, to Vinny's point about what's still continuing about who wants to control what.
We are having these discussions.
They only see politics. They only see advantage. My concern is that the unknowns are now more dangerous than the knowns. So what's changed since then? I don't have long vaccine. People are saying
long COVID.
I've admitted long vaccine.
Oh, okay.
People are saying I've admitted that the vaccine hurt me. I have not admitted that. I don't know that. Do I now believe that we have data to support the fact that there are thousands of people who have had adverse effects that are not getting attention, let alone treatment? Yes. And I fault government for that. I do have what they call long COVID. Now, I say that.
Oh, so now he has long COVID. So it's not long vaccine, even though he was talking to somebody who was vaccine injured on his show, not somebody who had long COVID, but vaccine injured. And he says, you and I are the same. He reiterated it twice, and now he's backpedaling. Again, I think the reason why he's backpedaling is because he wants to keep his options open for his job. That's the only thing Chris Cuomo cares about, Chris Cuomo, and that's it.
They call because the government, it's funny, after that clip, I got called by government people bitching at me because I said that the vaccine wasn't perfect. So that's where we were then. That's where we were then. But they say, hey, Chris, easy on the long COVID. We don't know that it's a thing. We don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. It could be other things, autoimmune. So I'm saying my doctors say I have long COVID. I have the symptoms. They showed me my blood work, scared the bejesus out of me to see this glowing micro clot stuff that they see in my blood. That it really shook me up. So I'm doing all the protocols. My doctor, Terrain Health, they're an international consortium because they have to do it themselves because the government's not giving them any guidance.
Hey, listen, I give him props for actually trying to do something for his health now, for listening to the people that he refused to listen to before. I like when people change their minds. I think it's good, and that's what we need. That's what we want. We want people to change their minds. I'm just particularly turned off by Chris Cuomo, who was one of the biggest pushers, who made his program every night on CNN, made many of us lose our relationships with our family members, with our friends, made us lose our jobs. This guy was one of the biggest pushers of destruction of many of our lives and relationships and family ties and loved ones. People that wouldn't show up to our weddings. I had family members that wouldn't show up to my wedding because of watching Chris Cuomo, very specifically, actually, consuming his show every night and then saying, Kim, you're an anti-vaxxer, anti-science, crazy person. It was Chris Cuomo who they were listening to. So yes, many of us would like an apology, actually, Chris, for ruining many of our relationships, for costing us our jobs. We would like an apology.
The vaccine is a really important conversation that's being ignored. I do not fault myself for telling people at the time what the government was giving us as best practices. People say, but your job is to question. Yes. On what basis? The basis of questioning early on was because I say so. Because you don't get to tell me what to do and not do.
Spoken like a true CNN anchor, right? What basis am I supposed to be questioning the government? My job is government propaganda, don't you know? Actually, we're here to just propagandize. Whatever the government and the CIA tells us to tell people, that's what we do. So what basis is it that I'm supposed to suddenly become somebody who questions the government? Right. Well, I mean, that is the viewpoint of many people in mainstream news.
Fine, I say. You are right. I said it then. However, you can't expect to be everywhere and do everything that the government is controlling, because you're not going to. Your kids aren't going to be able to be in school, just like is true today in terms of what your state's vaccine protocol is. That was my point. What this guy and others want me to do is to say, I was wrong, the vaccine is bad.
Yeah, we do.
I'm not going to say that. The data is overwhelming that when the vaccine entered our population, the people going into the hospital with very serious or eventually terminal cases was reduced. Now, at what cost and why? We don't know. Am I open to that? Yes. If I were a propagandist, I wouldn't be doing the reporting that I'm doing right now.
Oh, my God. Okay. He's a propagandist. Anyway, he does go on to say that he is taking ivermectin. Let me just play that clip for you.
I'll tell you something else that's going to get you a lot of hits. I am taking a, what do they call it? Like a regular dose, you know, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is why? Everyone's going to say Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right. But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID and they weren't saying anything. Not that they were hiding anything, but it's cheap. It's not owned by anybody, and it's used as an antimicrobial, antiviral in all of these different ways and has been for a long time.
For malaria for over almost 20 years.
Yeah. So, and my doctor, who is now my doctor, was using it during COVID on her family and on patients, and it was working for them. So they were wrong to play scared on that. Didn't know that at the time. Know it now, admit it now, reporting on it now. Because I think that's the job. The idea that, well, you were a vaccine proponent. Why wouldn't I have been a vaccine proponent? Now there are questions. Oh, no, but I knew at the time. No, you didn't. What you knew was that there were people telling you to be resistant to what the government was telling you to do.
That is not what was going on. What a bullshit. I'm so sick of this guy. I am sorry. But no, that is not what was going on. We knew because the data was there. Because there were countries like Israel who had vaccinated their entire population, and they did a deal with Pfizer, data for doses. So we got the data. We knew what it would and would not do. That was coming out. Him to say, "Oh, we were just being anti-government. We were just wanting to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian." No, that isn't. He's still clearly not listening. Still clearly not. I mean, okay, bullshit. Let's just listen to what he said. This is a flashback from 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. This is the type of stuff he was saying.
People who are injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh, my God. What person? You know, you talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer. Really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to be shamed.
Yeah.
They need to be called out and shamed, brother.
Yeah, well, so do you. You now need to be called out and shamed, Chris Cuomo. You need to be called out and shamed for all of the many hours of COVID coverage you did while you were collecting millions of dollars from CNN, pushing vaccines, shaming people who were trying to take whatever medication they could find that would actually do something for them rather than hunkering down like the government said and wait for the vaccine that did not stop the spread, the vaccine that did not stop people from getting severe COVID. People say, well, okay, it doesn't stop the spread, it turns out. Okay, but it stops, when you get COVID, you won't know it. And then they got COVID and they were really sick and but at least I won't end up in the hospital. And then they ended up in the hospital and they said, well, at least I won't end up dead. And then they ended up dead. And then they said, well, that's because you didn't take enough of the vaccine. You were supposed to take it 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't even know what jab we're on at this point. The person who should be shamed is Chris Cuomo for ruining many of our jobs, our lives, our families, our communities, for smearing many of us, shaming many of us when we were the ones who were right. And Chris Cuomo was wrong. And look, the silver lining on all of this with Chris Cuomo now coming out and changing his tune is that maybe, look, if you have family members, if you have friends that watched, gobbled up a lot of CNN and called you names and shamed you and said you were wrong and a conspiracy theorist, maybe now you could share these clips of Chris Cuomo backpedaling and say, see, the guy that you trusted, the guy that you loved on CNN, even he's changed his tune on this. Maybe that will change more hearts and minds. Maybe it will. That's the silver lining to this douchebag. I'm sorry, but maybe it'll to this clearly careerist, not interested in truth, not interested in facts, interested in money, interested in fame, interested in getting his job back on CNN. I also want to play for you before we wrap this up. I want to play for you his brother. Yeah, his brother's at it too. This is Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York, now making the claim that he never mandated anybody do anything. It wasn't him. There was no, listen to this spinning of what happened. He's talking to Dr. Leanna Wen. She was also one of the biggest proponents of mandates. People should be shamed and we shouldn't allow them into society if they're not going to be vaccinated. These two were along with Chris Cuomo, his brother, they were some of the biggest purveyors of the fear and the demonization and the shame and the misinformation that circulated during the pandemic. But here they are now trying to rehabilitate their images because they were so wrong. The thing is, we cannot let them do this. I'm really perturbed at the PBD podcast for having Chris Cuomo on as a regular, doing a deal with that guy. We should not be rehabilitating these people and their careers. It's not right. Just like all the people that marched us into war during the Iraq invasion after 9/11. It's not right to rehabilitate these people. We shouldn't set do I think they should never work again or things? No, I don't. I'm not at all saying that. I believe people should, of course, have the right to make a living. But should they be re-imaged as now people that we can trust as truth tellers? No, they should just remain the propagandists that they are. Chris Cuomo's fine on News Nation. Leave him there. He doesn't need a job. He doesn't need to go onto a podcast where and have a regular slot on a podcast where they tell the truth, where they're known for breaking down, issues and looking at them with a clear lens and being truthful and having debate. I don't think a propagandist belongs there, in my personal opinion. I don't think that I don't think he deserves it. I think it's a matter of there were plenty of people who lost a lot. And those are the people who deserve to make money, deserve to be in the spotlight, deserve to have their images rehabilitated after the years of shame that fell upon them during the pandemic because of guys like Chris Cuomo and Dr. Leanna Wen and Andrew Cuomo. We're about to play this clip. Look at this. This is him now saying, I didn't mandate anything.
I believe if government were to now say, we just made a finding that there's a new virus and everyone should do X, Y, and Z, the amount of compliance with X, Y, and Z would be much, much lower than it was at the beginning of COVID because people do not trust the government, especially on this issue, the way they did at the beginning. And that would be a complicating factor, right? When you have people who just don't listen. Because government had no capacity to enforce any of this. You must wear a mask. And people wore masks in New York. But if they said, I'm not wearing a mask, there was nothing I could do about it. You must close your private business. I won't. Well, there was nothing I could really do about it. It was really all voluntary. And it was extraordinary when you think about it, that society acted with that uniformity voluntarily because I had no enforcement capacity.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. This is just the biggest amount of bullshit I think I've ever heard. I didn't have the ability. I didn't have an enforcement task, an enforcement police force. So therefore, it was voluntary. If you wore a mask because the government told you had to wear a mask, it was really voluntary because there was really nothing I could do about it. If you closed your business and lost your livelihood, lost your business. Many businesses, not only did they close, but they closed down for good. They couldn't survive. Oh, if that happened to you, you did that voluntarily. Yeah, that was voluntary because we didn't have a mechanism for coming after you if you didn't close your business. What? We're rewriting history now. Are you kidding me? This is insane. This is totally and completely Absolutely bonkers, insane. What kind of a world? Again, guys, we cannot allow these people to rehabilitate their images like this. We cannot allow them to rewrite the stories, change the narratives, tell us now, well, you did that voluntarily, or I wasn't propagandizing for the government. That was because you yourself were just so anti-government. That is why you were against the vaccines and mandates, because you were just anti-government, not because you actually were reading science and following the news and actually paying attention, the job that Chris Cuomo should have been doing. I mean, just the rewriting. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I cannot, guys. All right. Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show, which you could catch just by heading to that link down below, KimIversonShow.com. You can watch the full show from what you just watched, or you could catch the full show live Monday through Friday, live streams, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you then. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Never miss an episode. Never miss a clip. Never miss a segment. Thanks, guys.